Do You by Russell Simmons. So, what can a hip-hop mogul from Queens, New York teach you about business, success, and being happy in life? If you answered meditation, yoga, and spirituality, you would be absolutely right. So, who is Russell Simmons? So, very briefly, he grew up in Queens, New York, as I said, in a less than privileged area. And very early on in life, he realized that he had a passion for hip-hop. But unfortunately, he realized he wasn't very good at hip-hop himself. So instead of trying to pursue a career as an artist, he instead formed a record company called Def Jam Records, and that produced the likes of the Beastie Boys and Run DMC. So it was a hugely successful record label. He then went on to start his own clothing company called Phat Farm, and then a baby clothing company called Baby Phat, and now he's the author of 6 books, including this one that I'm reviewing right now. He has a wife and 2 daughters, and in 2011 his estimated net worth was over $300 million. So that's not too shabby. So what is this book about? So Russell talks about 12 laws that he says you should follow to create a successful and happy life. So I'm going to go through them right now, one by one. Law number 1, Russell says you should set your vision and stick to it. So there are 2 concepts covered in this law. The first is the power of the grind. He says when you're trying to achieve something, you work hard on it, you're not going to get results straight away. You just have to keep plugging away, even though maybe it's not working straight away. Maybe you need 6 months or 12 months. He even cites an example as one of his clothing companies, I think Phat Farm. It was 6 or 7 years without any profitability before that turned a profit. Says maybe you don't need to wait that long, but this concept of delayed gratification is very important to be successful. You can't expect to get results straight away. What makes you think that you should get results straight away? Second thing he talks about in this law is the power of listening to your imagination, and that is basically if you can see something in your head and it's real enough and you can imagine it, then don't listen to the naysayers or the haters. The power of imagination is very important, and you can use that to drive yourself forward and make things happen. So if you can imagine it, then you can go and make it happen. The second law he talks about is always do you, and this is all about being genuine. Okay, so be true to yourself and don't try to shy away from it. He says those people who aren't true to themselves, those people try to put on a front or try and be somebody that they're not. They might have one-hit wonder, or they might have initial success, but it's very rare that they have a long-term success. In fact, he talks about an artist called Vanilla Ice, and he had a very successful hit called Ice Ice Baby back in the 80s. This artist apparently presented himself as being from the hood. He wasn't actually from the hood. He wasn't presenting his true self. People found out he was a fraud, and then Russell says that's why in the long term people didn't really buy his music anymore, and he kind of fell by the wayside. He is kind of like one of the big one-hit wonders that the music industry has produced. He also says, listen, there's always going to be haters. If you're going to be yourself, you're going to put yourself out there, people are going to hate on you. You just need to expect it, just accept it, and not let that deter you from where you want to go. So that's law number 2, always do you. Law number 3 is get your mind right. So he says that your mind is more powerful than your body, and the way to get your mind right is through meditation and yoga. He says if you can meditate on a daily basis and do yoga on a daily basis, then eventually you're going to be able to hear the God inside of you, which is basically your higher self, and that is the key to happiness. So meditating on a daily basis, and he is a big proponent of doing yoga. So he talks about a story how he had lots of money, lots of business success, but he was relatively unfulfilled for some reason. Then one day, one of his friends introduced him to a yoga class, and that was basically just changed his life. And he's a huge proponent of yoga now because he feels like he's reached the higher self inside of him, and that's really what's made him happy. So he talks a lot about that. He also says he also talks about the power of now, which is basically being in the moment. Don't focus too much on the future or on the past. Be in the moment and be present. And the only time that you should really be worrying about is right now. If you're planning a project or if you want to make a change in your life, don't wait 2 or 3 weeks or 4 weeks or months. Don't procrastinate on it. Start now. You can always do something right now, and waiting is never the right answer. So that's part of number 3, get your mind right. Law number 4, stop fronting and start today. So a bit of a continuation, but waiting is never the right answer, as I just said. You have to go and find your dharma, he talks about, which is kind of like your life purpose. This is a Sanskrit word ancient times dharma, and it basically means that you need to go and find out what really fuels you, what gets you going, and what is your life purpose, what are you fighting for, what are you willing to stand up for. And he gives you a series of questions and techniques that you can use to try and find your life purpose. And he says also that it's never too late to start, and he cites 3 examples of Lord Buddha, who didn't actually start following his dharma until the age of 31, and then Muhammad, who didn't start hearing things from God until the age of 40, and then Colonel Sanders of KFC, who famously started his KFC brand at the age of 66. He says a lot of people put things off because they feel like they're too old, or they feel like it's too late, so they just give up on it. You're never too late to start, according to Russell Simmons. He also talks about never less than your best. So this is number 5, never less than your best. When you're working your hardest, the world opens up to you. And he talks about even if you're in a dead-end job, you're not really passionate about it, you should still work your hardest at it, because doors start opening if you really push things, if you really show your dedication and really give it your all. Doors start opening for you. He also talks about to give it your all, you should focus on the action rather than the results. I've actually covered this in a few previous videos. This seems to be a recurring topic that keeps popping up in the book reviews that I'm doing. He says, if you just focus on the action and detach yourself from the results, then you're more likely to follow through. If you're always doing it for the results, or the money, or the, let's say, recognition, then that's not how you get to, that's not how you're going to follow through. You really need to be doing it. It's a labor of love, basically. He says that you should be doing the work and you should be loving it. That's how you get happiness. The happiness comes from the work itself rather than the results. So this is a common theme that he keeps reiterating throughout the book. He also says to be never less than your best, you should integrate daily rituals. So this is something like meditation, yoga. He talks a lot about that. He talks about the power of habit, making sure that you do things that are important on a repetitive basis. The 4th thing he talks about in this section is hustle like you're the immigrant. Okay, so especially in the West, in the US and the UK too, and in Western countries, there's basically a land of opportunity, right? I'm actually here in Bali right now, and it's unbelievable the amount of poverty I see around me. Okay, people living here for less than $1 a day easily. When you come from Western countries, you're actually from a land of privilege, and he says you should hustle like you're underprivileged. You should hustle like you're coming from countries like this and you're looking for opportunity. Really have that hustle work ethic, and doors are going to open up for you, right? And the last thing he talks about in this is he has so many stories of rappers who have been trying to work really hard to get money, to get rich, and then they make it, right? And then they go and blow their money on this car that they've always wanted, or on a house that they've always wanted. And then the common thing is they always think, is that it? You know? And he says that the actual work is the process by which you obtain happiness. And these rappers, they reach their what they consider their peak. They can buy the car they've always wanted, the house they've always wanted, then they purchase it, and then it's like, now what? And they just do a tailspin essentially, because their life purpose basically has just been destroyed. And now what? Now what's next? And he says you need to love your work. That needs to be the reason for your happiness. Law number 6 is surround yourself with the right people. So he says that no one can find success by him or herself. So if you surround yourself by spiritual, hard-working people, then that's the kind of person that you're going to be yourself. He says that's really important. He also talks about the power of joint ventures and collaboration, and that being a small part of a large success is more important than being, a big part of a very small success, like the large fish in a small pond. It's better to be, a reasonable sized fish in an ocean. You're going to make a lot more change and value, and provide a lot more value to the outside world by doing that. He also says say no to yes men. So if you have people around you that are just trying to say things that they think that you want to hear, so somebody who isn't able to criticize you, or somebody who isn't able to tell you the truth, you need to get these people out of your life. These yes men, they always say yes, they always agree with you. These people are frauds. They're not going to help you, and if you have people like that around you, you're going to get a distorted view of reality. Essentially, you're not going to be able to get true, full feedback. He also says finally that you should try and surround yourself with smarter people than you. And if you're a business owner, you should certainly try to incentivize them so that they stay around you. And he talks about how when he sells his companies, he provides his people with huge bonuses for working for him, and that keeps them motivated, it keeps them happy, and they stay around him. So these people are smarter, and they help keep his companies profitable and successful. So law number 7, there are no failures, only quitters. So he says a never say die attitude is more valuable than wealth, connections, or any other thing that might go into being a successful person. Says the other thing that's really important, he says you're always going to hit a wall. You just need to expect it. It's never going to be that easy for you to achieve what you want to achieve. You're always going to hit ceilings. There's always going to be periods of frustration, and if you can expect that, if you can understand and expect that, then you're way more likely to bust through it. He says he also cites the autobiography of a yogi, whereby he sends his students into the backyard to dig a hole, and the student digs a hole until he reaches a rock, and he reaches a rock and he gives up and starts a new hole, starts digging until he reaches another rock. Okay, starts a new hole, keeps digging until he reaches another rock. So only when the student actually tries to bust through that rock does the student reach the water that he or she's been looking for, essentially. And that's what Russell Simmons says you need to be like in your pursuit of success. You're going to hit rocks. You just got to bust through them. It's how you react to them that's important. You don't give up. You don't start new holes. And he actually gives a very interesting story about how he was in the gym one day and Puff Daddy walked in, Sean Combs. Puff Daddy, hugely successful rapper, and got on like the Stairmaster next to him, and they had a bet between them, right? So Puff Daddy was like, listen, I can stay on this stair machine longer than you, and Russell was like, okay, let's have a bet. And they came up with a bet, and I think, you know, if Puff Daddy stayed on the machine longer than Russell Simmons, then Russell had to pay Puff Daddy $700 to fix his Volkswagen or something like that. Hour and 40 minutes later, Puff Daddy was still there working on the Stairmaster. He won the bet. He won the $700 from Russell, and he says that's a great example of just, you know, never say die, never quit attitude, and Puff Daddy has that in abundance. He also says don't accept no. So if you're working on something and somebody says no, don't just accept that as that's it, that's the end of it. Keep phoning them, keep calling them back, keep banging on their door in a respectful way, but just keep doing it. And history is full of instances where people, before they were successful, were told no. I think the most common example that I hear is J.K. Rowling, the author, you know, banging on publishers' doors to try and get published. Everyone said no. One of the most successful authors of all time now. So don't accept no. If you get told no, go back for more. Find other people. Talk to other people. Go back to the same person. Keep bothering them until you get the right answer that you need. Rule number 8 is all about planting the good seeds. This is all about karma, and he says what you reap you will sow, so be sure to give freely. The world merely reacts to what you put out there. And he says the importance of living consciously and being aware of your actions. So not only should you put good things out there, should you give and do things for others, because that's going to come back. The world is going to deliver that back to you. He also says you need to live in a conscious way, understand how you're living, and be aware of your actions. And one of the things he points to here is vegetarianism, whereby, you know, if you're a meat eater, you need to understand where meat comes from and how it's produced and the inhumane ways in which animals are killed. And he talks about that as an example, as somebody who wants to create a successful and abundant life, to be aware of your actions and what you're supporting. Rule number 9, you can never get before you give. So here he talks about an interesting story of somebody who now works for him called Tanisha, who basically came up to him one day and said, listen, how can I help you? What can I do to work with you? I work for free. How can I help you? And, you know, Russell said, no, sorry, we don't really have anything, and just moved on. But I was very polite about it, of course, but just moved on. And then I think it was like 2 or 3 weeks later, he turned up at his office, and there she was again on the doorstep. Listen, well, how can I help you? How can I serve you? Again, he said, listen, we don't have any positions, so there's nothing I can offer you right now. And this cycle repeated itself to eventually day 5 or 6, Russell was like, listen, I can't pay you. We don't have a position available, but you can work for one of my colleagues for free, and if something comes up, then will consider you for the role. And she worked for free, and before long, the person that she was working for came to Russell and said, listen, we've got to give this girl a job. She's doing so well. And this girl, Tanisha, is now one of the big leaders in his company. Basically said that's a great example of giving before you getting. Okay, so she was giving for nothing, and because of that, she's got herself a job that she would otherwise not be able to get. That was a great example. To put this into words, he says the best way to find yourself is in the service of others. And he also says, interestingly, that making money is the best way to serve others. So he says, all the rich guys, all the successful people are the people that are making change in this world. He cites the likes of Bill Gates and Warren Buffett. It's like it's much easier to form a foundation if you're already successful, if you already have the skills in business. It says don't separate making money from doing good in this world. They're often hand in hand. If you want to make big change, you really want to try and be successful as well. And the last thing he says in this rule, which is you can never get before you give, is that money doesn't equal happiness. Again, this is a theme that was repeated often in the book. And again, he went over some stories about how rappers, thought they were chasing materialistic goods, they were chasing, objects like cars, houses, and they eventually got them. They were sent into a tailspin because they realized that now what? It was basically a facade, and that's not how you reach happiness, by chasing external things. It's really got to come from the work itself. You really got to be have your life purpose and have a vision, and that's what's going to make you happy, essentially. So rule number 10 is stay open to change. And he says here, it's more useful to bring people together than to hold on to things that divide you. So he's talking about cultural differences. He's talking about boundaries that sometimes separate people, like race, sexuality, this kind of stuff. Saying, forget all of that nonsense. Okay, it's much better, much more productive. You're going to have much more success if you just drop all of that nonsense and try and work on your empathy and relating to people that maybe aren't the same as you. Just drop all these prejudices and racial issues that you have. Just drop them all and let's all work together. It's going to be much more beneficial for us all. He says the last thing he says in this is one thing you should be extreme about is loving and practicing good karma. So rule number 11 is be powerful and be heard. And the main thing about this is to take self-responsibility for everything that you do in your life. You don't wait for people to give you stuff. You don't put blame onto other people. You are responsible for what you achieve in this life. You have to go out there. If you want something, you have to go out there and take it. Okay? To do that, to be a powerful person, that's what it means. To be a powerful person, you also have to get your mind and body right. Again, he talks about meditation, yoga, getting your mind focused on what you want to achieve. Staying in shape, going down the gym 3 times a week, making sure your body is confident just like your mind is. Having a good, strong, healthy body can make you even more confident. He also talks about empowering people. He says one of the ways you can become more powerful is by empowering other people, especially if you're a business owner. Empower your employees to make decisions. Allow them to go out there and think for themselves and create what they want to create. If you can do that, then you'll become more powerful yourself and you'll have much happier employees. The last thing he says is, he talks a bit about financial sense, essentially, that you should save money and emphasize on owning things. So rather than going out there as soon as you have a bit of success and just blowing it on stupid stuff like drinking or clubbing or whatever, you should own things, own assets, income producing assets, like houses maybe, or own companies. This is where your mind should be. You want to be a powerful person? This is how you have to think about your money. And the last thing he talks about, rule number 12, is spit truth to power. So he says essentially about having a critical thinking mindset. So don't accept the truth from things you hear. Actually analyze it, critically analyze it. Take time to find the real truth. Just because somebody says it to you doesn't mean it's actually true, right? And if you see injustices in the world, it says you need to stand up for it, even if it doesn't affect you. If somebody else is having injustice now, tomorrow that injustice will be for you. And he gives an example of how his dad, who worked for the government, stood up for an injustice that he saw for people who were building a hotel, I believe. I can't remember the story exactly. The injustice didn't affect him, but he joined the picket line the next day. They were on holiday, I think. Basically, holiday was over. they cancelled the holiday because he found out about this injustice, joined the picket line, and fought for the rights of these guys, even though it wasn't his injustice. He said, that's how you need to be. You must be the change that you want to see in this world. And that's kind of like the last idea that he leaves us with in this book. So those are the 12 laws. So let me just run through them very quickly. So number 1, set your vision and stick to it. Number 2, always do you, be genuine. Number 3, get your mind right. Number 4, stop fronting and start today. Number 5, never less than your best. Number 6, surround yourself with the right people. Number 7, there are no failures, only quitters. Number 8, plant the good seeds. Number 9, you can never get before you give. Number 10, stay open to change. Number 11, be powerful and be heard. And number 12, spit truth to power. So, who should read this book? So, honestly, there's some golden nuggets in here for everybody. But if you're coming from like an underprivileged area, or if you're from an ethnic minority and you feel like you can't achieve very much because of your background, because of your upbringing, because of where you're brought up, then you will be inspired by this book. Because this guy didn't come from privilege. This guy didn't come with a silver spoon in his mouth. He came from a less than privileged area. He came from a poor area, and he still managed to make a huge success of himself by following his passion and working hard. So if you're from one of these areas and you feel like you want to be a success, but you don't feel like you can because of the environment that you're in, read this book. It's going to inspire you. It's going to make you realize that you still can achieve what you want to achieve. So, my own changes from this book. So I keep hearing, during this self-development experiment, I keep reading about meditation and the benefits of meditation. And it just keeps coming up again and again and again. It's like, clear your mind, meditate, focus on your breathing, get rid of the monkey chatter in your mind. It helps grow the frontal cortex. It helps you grow your willpower. There's so many different benefits that keep coming up in this experiment that, again, Russell Simmons talked about this in this book, and finally I've realized there's got to be something to this now. I've been skeptical in the past, but there really has to be something to this. So I've made a note from this book as a result of reading this that I really need to build a meditation practice into my daily routine. I want to see for myself how this meditation thing works. That's something I'm going to be doing in the very short future, just dedicating a certain period of my time every single day to meditating. So I will report back on this channel how that goes. So that's the one thing I really took away from this book. That's it. Thank you for watching this video. This video is part of my self-development experiment. I'm recording 140 videos, reading 140 books, and talking about the books that I've read on my YouTube channel in order to improve my reading, my retention of reading books, and my video presentation. I think I'm on like book 15, so there's a bunch more videos to go. If you like this video, subscribe to the channel. I'm producing way more content, and yeah, I hope you found this video useful.